Welcome. Welcome to Module 2. This is Lesson 1, the Wisdom of the Primordial Mother. And so as I'm speaking about these things on the path themselves, I want you to take a little bit of time to really slow down and take this in, and then just be aware. Be very mindful of what's happening in your body as I speak, what you're sensing, what thoughts kind of pop up, what epiphanies might arise from all of this, and just be mindful of that. And I will also try to remember to do some pauses in between and allow you to digest some of this information and just to notice, because maybe a lot of it you might already be aware of, but all of this information is within you, is one of the things I really want to stress here. And in order for us to be able to feel and to become aware of these truths within you, we have to slow down, we have to take our time, and we have to be willing to just be very present with what's moving at any given time. So feel free to pause the video, and if there's a lot of thoughts that come up, a lot of epiphanies that come up for you, then take a minute to journal some of those. Okay. So here we're going to really explore a little bit about the why and the how. So why would we want to engage in this feminine path? And in order to explore this question, we'd have to kind of go back a little bit and think about, well, what brings us to spirituality? What within us wants to explore a spiritual path per se? And in many ways, we can look at this inner yearning that many of us feel. It's like this internal process that we feel different times of our lives, that it's about wanting more. It's about wanting something that perhaps we can't even put a name on, or we can't really recognize what that is or articulate what that is. But it's this inner seeker energy that perhaps wants to understand the mysteries. We want to understand the mysteries. We want to feel like a deeper connection with the world around us. We might have an ache in our hearts that want to be seen or to be heard even, right? It's like this separation in many of the traditions and the spiritual traditions. There's this whole saying around that this wound, the separation, the yearning for the beloved is what actually allows us to turn towards the divine, to turn inward, to seek, and to seek the path that feels right for us. And so for women, since ancient times, we have always been and continue to be very connected to the divine in many ways, and have always been at these thresholds of being the medicine woman, talking, engaging, being the one, the guide and the intermediary to work with the souls that are not in bodies and the spirits of the land, of places. We have always been there for births and deaths and healing the sick. And so as women, we are designed as that intermediary, as that carrying that ability to really walk between the worlds. And And it's only in recent time, in the last 5,000 years, which we talked about in the last module, that we've been completely severed from this. And severing ourselves from our divine nature, our ability, our capacities, our ways of knowing is really about kind of leaving a great part of ourselves disconnected, repressed, in the shadows, where we're only awakened and functioning from this 20, 30, 40, 50% of our humanity, of our physical nature in the physical world. But we shut down a lot of those ways of knowing, a lot of these innate ways of knowing, because it is part of who we are, our divine nature. We all have an individuated soul. We can connect with the unseen world, and we can walk in between the worlds. And so it's very painful in many ways to live life in a way that we're shut down, that we may have shut down, whether it's our emotional body, whether it's our spiritual body or spiritual connection, or it can be also the connection with the spiritual world around us. And so in many ways, this might be a good why. Maybe we feel that disconnection. Maybe we feel that yearning. Maybe we feel like something within us is just drawing us. And perhaps the ways that we've tried to connect and awaken our spiritual body and our physical knowing and our physical, it's like our divine nature with our human nature, right? Waking that up. Maybe the ways that we've tried that haven't really spoken to us, because a lot of those other spiritual paths are created by men for men. And so it misses a lot of the nuances that the feminine path brings to us. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the pathways as we go through these lessons here. But the why is really important to know, because we might dedicate a lot of time and be committed. And so really understanding our personal devotion and what is motivating us is important to know. And again, these are not things that are easy to articulate. It might just be a yearning, a feeling, but it's very important to acknowledge that, so that you continue to walk in the way that carries that integrity for you. Because moving into and walking into a spiritual path of the feminine, and really like any spiritual path, takes dedication, takes devotion, and takes time. And the feminine in particular is going to be, in many ways, the complete opposite of the messages that you receive on a daily basis from the world around you. Because we're living in a world, in a dominant culture that in most places is still supporting the patriarchal paradigm. And in the patriarchal paradigm, the feminine does not exist. The feminine is shut down, and the feminine is demonized in many ways. And so it's really important to connect with the whys for you, your personal why, and really speak to and acknowledge that yearning, or that part of you that is motivated to seek, that is motivated to sit down and engage in these practices. The second why that is really important to me as an integrative physician is that many of our dysregulations that we experience, whether it's dysregulation in our physical body, with our cycles, with menopause, with our immune system, etc., digestive system. Yes, there's always a physical component, of course, right? There's a biological something or other happening. The symptoms, if you may, the biological symptoms. And if we really look deeper, there many times, not all times, many times there's a spiritual component that stems from our disconnection to ourselves, the disconnection from this true divine nature that we're speaking about here. And this is the same for our mental health and our emotional well-being. So our anxiety, our fears, our hopelessness, and how we judge ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, the unworthiness and some of the toxic shame that we carry. All of those, yes. Physical, yes. Mental, yes. Emotional. And at the core, there's a root of it's what we say, it's a spiritual disease in many ways. It's because we are living in a way disconnected from our own spiritual truth. And that alone, of course, we all want to feel good. We want to heal. And that brings us to my third why, which is healing. In order to heal on all levels, not just suppress the symptoms of what might be happening, not just learning coping mechanisms for our mental, emotional challenges, right? Yes, we could do that, and that might be helpful to bring in some of those behavior modification and coping skills and working with our nervous system, working with our thoughts and how we think, and unraveling our mental patterns, our conditioning. Those are all valid. And at the core, it's like, what is the root? And the root is this spiritual disease that we're all experiencing, that most of us are experiencing, I should say, because it's not all of us. There are some beautiful cultures that are still connected to the feminine, but it's not in our dominant culture. It's not in our dominant culture, and it's not what most of us are exposed to. And so, well, let's take a pause here, just a minute pause, because this was a lot of information. And before I complete this video, I just want you to take a deep breath here and just sense what's happening in your body. Just sense what might be moving for you right now. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that. Jotting down any thoughts that might be prevalent, that are rising for you. And the next piece that I want to create some awareness around is some of these really important aspects of the feminine path. One is sovereignty. Sovereignty meaning that you within yourself, you are whole. You within yourself carries the wisdom and all of the other qualities of your soul of this knowledge that has been forgotten, has been suppressed for thousands of years. And so you carry that within you. You have the ability to connect directly to source, to connect directly to the greater powers, if you may, and connect directly with your individuated greater power as well. There's no need for an intermediary. There is no need for an outside authority. What is helpful is a guide that can help you because they themselves have already touched within these truths within them and awakened them to a certain degree. And so in many ways, the words, when the words are spoken, they awaken a reality within you. But really important to understand that this reality already exists within you. It is who you are. And many of us have to be awakened, whether it's through others, through mentors or guides, or our own spiritual guides, or through books, and we read and all of a sudden something shifts within us and something can transform and we evolve. And so for many of us, we all are moving through this process to different degrees. And sometimes it's a little tricky. Sometimes there's ways in which our thinking can twist and veil some aspects of deeper truths, where we can protect ourselves unknowingly from ourselves. Well, we might protect ourselves from fear, but also keeping us stuck. So in this way, guides or others that have been there and have moved through these stages can be of great support because they act as catalysts. And so all this to say that you carry the wisdom and you're the authority of you. And so no one can really tell you the truth about you. But sometimes they can see things that you might not be able to see yet. But ultimately, it's really important that when we receive information, even as I'm speaking about these topics and these pathways, etc., even as I'm speaking, we need to turn within and see how am I resonating with this? And sometimes we can get triggered, which is where the tricky part comes in, because sometimes the words trigger us and might trigger old patterns of fear. And then we might get angry, or we might refuse something that is triggering our own fear, but we might only see our anger. And our egos might say, oh, I don't really need that. And the truth is that we have to be really honest with ourselves. We have to be able to look at ourselves, knowing that we constantly make mistakes, knowing that it's not about being perfect, not making any mistakes. It's about actually being honest. And if we've made mistakes, if we've, say things and then realize that that's actually not the greater truth for you, then we can clean it up. We can say, hey, I made a mistake. You know what? I thought about this. I felt into it. I meditated with this. And I realized that this was more about fear. And fear does that to us. And so that's an important piece. So watching out for our triggers, watching out where we feel we dismiss something before totally really taking it in and sitting with it, and exploring whatever might arise, our fears, our anger, our rage. Sometimes it is enraging. Some of these things that we're going to be talking about, it will bring up our rage, especially for women, because there's been so much injustice. And so allowing yourself to feel, allowing yourself to be with, letting go of blame, right? So if my words anger you, how much of it is me? How much of it is the reality of those words? How much of it is your own pain and experience? So these are things to be with and explore. And knowing that you are in your sovereignty always. Yeah. The second point that I wanted to make is that the feminine path is all about embodiment. And I've allured to this in several ways. It's not about bringing in something that we have to become because we don't have it. And here's where words get really tricky, right? So we are becoming, we are evolving. We're doing that on a daily basis, right? Every time we have a thought, every time we breathe in, there's inhale, it's like a rebirth, and an exhale is a death. And this cycle of rebirth and death and rebirth and death is ongoing. And we have to allow ourselves to let go, knowing that within us is already the jewel, the essence, our soul. That's not something that we have to acquire. We are already that. It's like at the core, we have this individuated soul, let's say. And this is your circle. Let's think of a circle. Radiant, beautiful, like the sun, let's say. And then all around that, in terms of consciousness, we have all of the conditioning patterns, all of the karma, all of the trauma, all around us. And these are the patterns. And the patterns are like the lens through which we are able to see, the lens through which we're able to feel, the lens through which we give our world and our experiences meaning. And so the work is a transformational work. It's an alchemical work to dissolve the patterns that are not truly in alignment. The things that we have believed, the belief system, which is anchored in a patriarchal belief system, which by nature denies our reality of who we are, and then on top of that, who we are as women, which is different than who we are as humans. So there's another unique element to that. And so disconnecting, dissolving all of those patterns. But we don't need to necessarily replace them with anything coming from the outside, because it's all already here. It's like the sun within you is already here. It's our true self. And so when we speak about embodiment is our ability to connect to merge with, to allow that truth of who we are to rise as we allow the conditioning that says we're unworthy, or the toxic shame, or any of these, where powerlessness patterns come in. And as we dissolve those, we automatically connect with our power, connect with the beauty, the love, the essence that we are. And we're going to actually talk about that in the next lesson. I'll explore that a little bit more with you. Embodiment. Dropping all the way through into our deepest essence of our being and embodying and letting that come through and weaving that in with our day-to-day, weaving that into our personality, weaving that into our thinking, who we are, the deeper sense of who we are. And so let's just take a deep breath around all of that, and we can continue with our next lesson in the next video. And if you want to journal a little bit of just whatever, even questions, curiosities, feelings, things you don't understand, maybe there's a sensation, a tightness around your belly or even your heart, let yourself just journal. You don't have to have the answers, just journaling, becoming aware of the sensations. Peace.